poll question. And now we're going to talk about what is the biggest obstacle to owning and operating your own franchise? What do you foresee as potentially being a difficulty or something that you need to overcome? This sounds all good and well until fear. So, yeah, uncharted land. All right, big portion where you get to hear from Josh. Yeah, taking the time to prepare is definitely important. All right, well, next up we have our Vet Speak portion where you get to hear from Josh Ambrose, and he's going to give us some insights on owning a franchise. Josh served 24 years in the Marine Corps, which is impressive on its own. And he is also currently balancing his time between working for Bank of America and owning a Mosquito Hunter franchise, which is a happiness brand. And leading our Vet Speak conversation will be Navy veteran Chris Hale. As the co-founder and CEO of GI Jobs, he's a true vetrepreneur. He'll also be leading our boot camp and is one of our senior franchise coaches. So take it away, gentlemen.
Rachel, thank you for the intro. Guys, this is one of my favorite things to do our company helps veterans find employment, education, and entrepreneurship opportunities, and far and away, this is my most favorite. I believe, franchising is one of those things where it's a perfect hybrid between working for somebody else and working completely on your own. Franchising is working for yourself, not by yourself. And, people come to me all the time and they say, hey, I'm interested in starting my own business, but I don't have a great business idea and I don't have any business experience. And, the answer to that is very, very simple, because that's the vast majority of people, is franchising. It gives you a playbook. It gives you a set of procedures and processes that are tried and true, that are proven. And if you follow that procedure, you're probably going to be met with some level of success. Proof is in the pudding. 1 out of every 7 franchise owners is a military veteran. The franchising community loves us, and we are a really, really good fit for them. Exhibit A, my friend from St. Augustine, Jacksonville, Florida area here today joining us, Mr. Josh Ambrose, Mosquito Hunters franchisee down there, and a proud Marine Corps veteran. Like Rachel said, Josh, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit so we're going to spend about 20 minutes together here, casual conversation, just talking Q&A about your journey path. Let's start with that journey path. Just give us a brief background, if you would, what you did in the Marine Corps.
Pretty much everything. So I started off enlisted for 7.5 years working on air conditioners. I got commissioned through the MESEP program and had a flight contract that way. Went through all the flight school and everything, got winged in 2008. Didn't necessarily make it out of the RAG flying F-18, so then I transitioned to be a logistics officer in 2009 timeframe. And I finished out my last 12 years as a logistics officer, serving all over, Iraq, Afghanistan, Japan, all over the United States with multiple types of units.
Very nice, very nice. So then you took the globe and anchor off and you exchanged it for that logo over your left shoulder there, in some capacity. Yeah. So business ownership. When did that occur to you that was something that you wanted to pursue?
I never thought I would be a business owner, to be honest with you. I always thought business ownership was for somebody that came from a lot of money, which I didn't, or had an entrepreneurial mindset, which I didn't. I always kind of took the safe bet a lot of times. I stick with the Marine Corps, I can get a pension, things like that. But, if you are trying to successfully transition out of the military, you really want to start it 2 years before you actually get out. And that's what I was doing. So during that process, when I was figuring out what I wanted to do next, I started the networking and everything. Is actually how I landed my job, at Bank of America, which I know you'll talk about. But during that process, I came across Amazon's DSP program, where essentially you're kind of like a franchisee, but without necessarily the royalties that kind of support you. But it's really hard to get a territory. And I had a good buddy that flew with me in the Marine Corps that is a pilot in Delta. It was during COVID, furlough time, and he was looking to try something else. So I put him in touch, gave him some information about the DSP program, but little did I know, he already knew about it. There was just no territories available near where he was. So then a franchise consultant reached out to him through LinkedIn, and he started going down the path of figuring all this out. And next thing you know, I'm never one to close the door. So, I just wanted to hear what he had to say to learn more about it. And after talking to him, I'm like, this might be something that I could do. Next thing you know, it just took off from there. Started working with a franchise consultant, honing down what industry I wanted to do. Personal tests were taken. Could they try to pair, a certain person's personality up that's with successful franchisees in that brand? So I found the industry I wanted to do, and then it was just kind of finding the franchise that I wanted to go with. And I tell you what, I don't think I'll ever look back. I didn't know I was meant for business ownership until I became a business owner.
Yeah, that's, and that story is not atypical, right? Because I think a lot of people think, it's for, you got to have a gazillion dollars. We talk to people all the time that say, because most of us think of franchising, they think of restaurants, and they think of McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and some of the big names that are out there. And those things are really expensive and frankly, financially out of reach for most people. But the vast majority of franchises, I like to say, if there's a product or service, especially a service, you're in the home services business, that's out there, there's probably a franchise for it. We, as Americans, we've got more disposable income than we've ever had. We don't spend our weekends checking off things off of the honey-do list, or like I was raised, doing chores all weekend. Right? Our kids are doing things in organized activities. We're spending our weekends doing other things. We outsource a lot of the things that we used to do in-house. And so anyway, talk about why you chose, I guess, home services in general, and why you chose Mosquito Hunters.
I knew I did not want to be in the food industry. And if you are in tune what's going on right now with the rise in the cost of goods, the rise in the cost of labor employments, you are smart enough to know that the food industry is maybe not the industry you want to go in. But what I liked about the home service industry was that, one, it's recurring revenue. So that means that I don't have to find a new customer every single time, because that customer is repeated treatments. It comes back, 80 to 84% come back next year. Whereas when you have a business model where you don't have recurring revenue, you got a lot more money towards marketing dollars. So that's something to consider. Home-based business was very important. Like, could I start this business without having to build out something like, build out a barber shop in a shopping center, or something that requires me to have some sort of warehouse or office or something like that? Because those things cost a lot of money, and especially commercial build outs, if you're not aware of that. And then something that also could allow semi-passive, if not passive, ownership, because at the time when I looked into this, I was already hired on at Bank of America. I didn't start with them yet, but I accepted their job offer. And I knew that I was not going to be able to run the business. I had my terminal leave and a little bit of time before I started with the bank. But that gave me time to get the business going and get people and processes in place so that I could shed it off to them and then go dedicate my time to Bank of America. So recurring revenue, home-based business, not a high startup, and semi-passive ownership were all kind of things that I didn't know I was looking for. But as I started to go through the discovery process, talk to people, I'm like, oh, that's actually much better. And I realized that those are some of the core things that now, if I was to give any advice to somebody to maybe look out for, or at least know what they are for each industry or brand you're going for.
Yeah, really good stuff. I guess, is it, with Mosquito Hunters in particular, is it typical that people have full-time employment outside of their franchise ownership, or is it more typical that they're kind of doing it on a full-time basis as their primary thing?
Yeah, I'd say it's 50-50. There are a good chunk of us that do other things. But I also know, like, I also, because I mentor, I just finished my second year. So this last year I mentored 3 brand new franchisees. And I also talk to a lot of other franchisees that are oncoming. And I tell them, even potential franchisees, it doesn't matter if you have another job. You cannot do it all on your own. And if you come in thinking that you can, this is really probably with any business, especially if you buy into the model, you cannot do it on your own. So you have to be able to find people, but probably 50%-ish of the people that come on as franchisees work some other full-time job.
Yeah. Can you talk about, we get a lot of questions about financing, and we saw that in the, in the survey that we did up front. Can you tell us, how much did it take to invest in your franchise, and how did you finance it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I had no clue about any of this when I was figuring it out. There's multiple different avenues. You could sell your home and take the profit from that to fund it. You could do a ROB, which is a rollover for business startup, where you take 401k or TSP money and you form a C corporation, and you basically take that retirement and put it into your retirement for your company. And that's how you fund it. You can do an SBA loan, which is what I did. And for me, there are some things I would have done differently. I would still have done an SBA loan, but the amount that I got would have been a little bit more. And here's so I ended up getting a $150,000 SBA loan, and that process in itself, sometimes could benefit from using a SBA loan broker to help you navigate which banks to go to, because some banks are more apt to giving loans to certain industries or franchising as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so they do a really good job at pairing you up with that. Got a $150,000 loan for the 2 territories that I have. And I probably, looking back on it, should have gotten more. And this is one bit of advice I want everyone to kind of know, is that most people do not turn a profit their first year or their second year. And usually when you're given, the franchise fees and territory fees for the first year, that covers the marketing, or at least for Mosquito Hunters it did. Year 1 marketing is covered that way. Year 2, it's on me. So I didn't really factor that. If I'm not making a profit yet, but I'm building the business, then where's that money going to come from? So when you are factoring in how much money you need, look at your marketing requirements and what you have to pay for next year, and probably plan for not making a profit the first 2 years to err on the safe side. Luckily for me, I've got the pension from the Marine Corps. I'm getting paid from the bank. So I was able to still fund it until it became, broke, until I was able to break even.
Yeah. Josh, how many, what's the head count in your, how many employees you have? Full-time, part-time?
2 full-time technicians, 1 part-time technician, and I have a full-time virtual remote worker in the Philippines that runs the admin and office and everything and sales for me.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a pretty tight operation.
Right.
Yeah. And then you've got, I guess, 2 full-time techs, and you got two trucks. Is that right?
2 vans and 1 truck. The truck was my truck that I ended up wrapping early on. When you're a business owner, you live and breathe it. So my wife was like, "Oh, great, you're wearing another orange shirt today." But I'm going to Walmart. I want people to see my brand.
Yeah.
So I wrap my truck everywhere I drive. I want them to see, and it's worked, because they see my road signs. They see me out in T-shirts and hats. They see me everywhere, and a much faster rate than my competitors. I branded myself in their brains. So yeah, my truck became a working vehicle, but also before it was wrapped, and I was doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, what does a day in the life look like for you, and for really a typical business owner?
Because I have people running a lot at this point, I am involved when they need me and some things come up, but I still do all the QuickBooks and accounting. I still lead the plan for marketing. I'm not the doer anymore. So I can pass off, to my office manager, I'm looking for this type of thing for marketing, or I need you to pull a report and target all these customers, or, so I can delegate a lot of it throughout the day. But I don't have to solely dedicate my time to it. Luckily I'm on paternity leave right now from the bank, so I've got time to do things like this and everything. But a lot of the times it's throughout the day. I'm not as involved. Maybe a phone call here where one of my employees has a question, but I've put the time in to train them and continue to mentor them so that they can do it and they don't have to rely on me. So, but that's not the same for everyone. You know, if you were coming in looking at like, you know, doing this job, you know, doing the sprays or being the technician and being the ground game person and the business owner, you know, like it's a full day. It's a full-time effort, you know. So I do a lot, but I don't do a lot of the other stuff that some people do.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So, you know, one of the questions people have these days is like, it's really hard to find workers, right? So keeping low headcount is important, right? But sounds like you got 2 full-time technicians. You know, how hard is it to find those folks and keep them?
Well, this answer would be different given this audience than what I'd probably give normally. And my 2 full-time technicians are Marines. If you can find somebody that was in the military, or if you can find somebody that specifically was in your branch of service, you'll have that connection with them. And that it's really the connection you have with your employees is what helps them stay and want to be there and find employees. You know, the military has, you know, just as much, we're a microcosm of society in the military. So we have the goods and bads. But the other thing too is you've got some military experience. So during the interviewing process, you can figure out what type of person they were in the military, and you have a better chance at knowing more about them just on the qualifications, the ranks, the achieved, the time frame they were there, what they did in the military. That can help you be a better judge of character. But so it's, you know, the franchise has platforms out there that help you get a bunch of candidates in. Finding people and getting candidates in isn't hard, but finding the right ones and then foster a relationship with them so that they stay with you for a long time is, I think, something that all of us are good at, because the longer you've been in the military, the better you are at mentoring and like building them up.
Yeah, good stuff. So one of the advantages to a franchise is a lot of the systems, right? So marketing systems, once you get a customer, nurturing that customer and having systems where you've got these automated payment processes and automated communication processes, and hey, if you need to cancel or whatever, setting up your chart accounts and your bookkeeping, payroll, all that stuff. Like talk to us about, you know, and that's one of the things people talk about. Well, I'm getting in this franchise, but they're going to charge me royalties. Well, that's, you know, some of the things you're paying for are those things, right? You're paying to not have to worry about and set up all that, all those really important, detailed things that frankly don't really do a whole lot to grow your business. They're necessary, but the franchisor really kind of helps you set that up. Talk to us about the level of support that you have with regard to that stuff, and what would that store like if you didn't have that infrastructure?
My business would be closed. I would not be successful. I'm just going to be honest with you, because, you know, you're buying into a program that has already learned so many other hard lessons that you don't have to learn. Like as far as like what software to use, or the fact that it's smarter to put a credit card on file that's auto charged instead of invoicing them because you have less customers that don't pay. Little things like that. You know, how to leverage marketing. You know, how they have a marketing team at the Happiness that I like to say does varsity level marketing. They outsource where it's proper to outsource. They do things in house where it's better and more cost effective. Their marketing dollars goes further because now they're bringing in, especially at Happiness under an umbrella company, they're bringing in like 600 franchisees to the table. So they're like Costco. They can buy down the pricing on things. Say, yeah, we'll use you, but you only charge us this much. So your marketing dollars goes further. The other thing is franchise will force you. Well, first of all, you can't grow if you don't market, right? A franchise will force you to market and spend more dollars in marketing than what you will ever force yourself to do. And you're like, you know, because if you try to do it on your own, you're like, oh, $5,000 in marketing, but $50,000. Spend $50,000 in marketing. You're probably like, man, that's a lot of money. But that's the whole reason I'm at like over 200 customers in 2 years, and a program value is because they force me to market and build brand awareness. There's also franchise coaches, so you have a coach that helps you. There's group learning, weekly calls where you learn from other franchisees. We just had our annual conference last week in Tampa, and learned so much from each other that you try to do it on your own, it will, you can exponentially increase your learning and growing of customers and your profitability when you do it through a franchise. So don't get hung up on the royalties.
Yeah. It's you're certainly getting your money's worth. So last couple questions. We're going to wrap up here shortly. What are your biggest challenges?
Let's see, tracking them, I've been doing well, but I realized last week at our conference that I'm not really tracking our numbers. I'm kind of just spending. And so one of my weaknesses has been my challenge where I need to know my numbers better, my finances better. And I to know, I need to be able to do things like say, okay, if I want X, like a new van, what do I need to increase my customer count to make a profit to cover that van? So that's been a challenge for me because I've been doing business for a long time. You start to learn those things. Some franchisees finding employees, good employees that will stay is tough. Part of it, our industry is seasonal. I'm down here in Jacksonville, so we're pretty much year round, but not everyone is. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But here's the thing I will say. One of the things I love about business ownership is that every single day there's a challenge. So, and you try to figure out how to solve problems. And I love doing that. I love trying to figure out how to solve problems. But other than that, I mean, is it hard? No. I mean, was it hard when we were in Afghanistan working 12, 14-hour days? No, you just do it, right? And this becomes, I think a lot of the people like me on this podcast or this class, I think you guys are more prone to being able to work harder and longer because you've been conditioned for that. Kind of like the first time you run a mile, it may have been 10 miles, but now you run a mile, you're like, that's nothing, So we've been exposed to more. So what we think is a full plate is much different than a full plate for some other people. So the challenges aren't as hard when you're coming from the military is what I'm trying to say. And it's also why the most successful franchisees are quite often military.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We get exposed to so many things, whether it's embracing the suck, long hours, right? Crazy hours, risk, right? Risk of injury or worse, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of my first civilian jobs, people were complaining about going on a business trip and having to be away from their family for 5 days. And I just started laughing, right? I mean, anyone who's in the military has to just laugh at that.
Yeah.
And it's as it is. It's funny. Yeah, right. Try going for 6 months, 7 months, 12 months to a place where, people are shooting at you and you're at risk on top of everything else, and not exactly living in, staying in nice hotels and eating at nice restaurants with per diem either. So,
exactly.
You're absolutely right. And I think it's the grit, right? It's the grit and the perseverance and the ability to say, hey, we can get through anything. Like this is nothing. No one's dying. Okay, we got a customer service issue. We can fix that. That's not stress.
And we're a lot better, I think, at taking ownership than some people. One of the biggest pitfalls in franchising, and I want this to kind of be out there, is that if you come into franchising with a W-2 mindset as an employee and not as I'm the business owner, then you're going to, when things don't go perfect or there's like a road bump, you will let it become a roadblock and you'll look to place blame. Like, they should have done this, blah, blah, blah. A lot of us military have, conditioned to take ownership of the issue. And it's because the reality is the failure and success of your business rests on the person that you see in the mirror every morning. You're the business owner. And that's important because when you own a franchise, I don't work for the CEO of Mosquito Hunters. He's not my boss. I'm my boss. I'm my own business. They set the guidelines and policies for some operations, but I have a lot of flexibility to go left and the right. And you can't sit there and say, well, he's done this and I'm failing. No, I own the business. So that's important to take away as well.
Yeah. And it's being in business, for yourself, but not by yourself, right? I like to say too, one of the advantages of franchising is you got brothers and sisters all over the country who are operating franchises in their geographical territories, just like you are.
Right.
And that's a tremendous network to rely on. And you've got a mothership that has your best interests in mind. And, they're not your boss, but they certainly, they want you to be successful and they have a vested interest in that success. So you got that kind of a support network behind you. You go and become an independent operator. Good luck calling your competition, asking for advice on how to solve a problem. That's not going to happen.
Right. There's also like Facebook groups and saying, asking questions. And sometimes I see these and I'm like, that person obviously is trying to do it on their own. I'm here. I've got another fellow franchisee in my house with me right now. And him and I are shooting videos together. He has some territory in Jacksonville. You can't get that when you do it on your own.
Yeah. It's cool stuff, man. And I think that sense of camaraderie and being part of a bigger group is also something that veterans really migrate to, because I think that's something a lot of us lose, right? When we leave the service, is that sense of mission and purpose and being part of a bigger group. So yeah, it's all good, man. Josh, listen, I got to thank you so much for joining us here today. You were really inspiring and really gave a lot of good advice, and hope you come back and join us again sometime soon. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Feel free, anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn if you've got more questions. I like helping people just as much as you guys are.
Awesome. Thanks a million, man. Thanks. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Yeah, for everybody. So that really kind of concludes the first half of our presentation today. We are going to move now into